He said it was going too bad.
All right, it's going.
All right.
Let me know. Let me know when it's on there.
And now we're going live on Twitter and.
And it's public.
Are we on Facebook?
Okay, public. So it's now let's share. Share. This is time to share now. Okay.
Don't be looking at my feet. I saw you.
Mm.
Cut that shit out.
I just
calmed myself down. It's just work shoes. It's just work shoes. These are work shoes.
They about to have it out on that job. They about to have it
She's
out.
gonna say I'm wearing work pants.
These are work. I would wear these to school. They got carpet.
That's not work pants.
Charles, is it live?
Party pants.
Yeah, it's live. We live, y'all. We live.
Okay.
You set you up.
Hey, you are encouraging.
No, I'm just asking a question. I was trying to figure out what's going on. Oh my God.
All right. Let's see if we can see Miss Coffee here on tonight. Y'all just.
They going.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the new conversation room.
6 minutes.
Whatever. Don't pay Mr. Fuller any attention. We are here, as you guys can see. We have the crew here. We have our two rodeo guests over there. They ready to come bring the trouble. You know, they going
it's gonna be one of them nights, and I can see it now.
That's why quote unquote sexy sweater movement.
Yeah.
It's called warm too. And Rhonda won't be with us tonight, so we will have the usual leftovers here. Mr. Ford, Adam Ford.
Nigga, I'm about to.
Yeah. Natalie Birdsong here. And we also have at the top, we have playing quarterback tonight. We have P.
Violation.
You know, we have P. Coffee.
Whose phone is
She's going to be, she's going to be manning the comments. She's going to be kind of, quarterbacking and dipping in and out and stuff like that. So.
I'm sorry. I'm sure.
I want to
know this is probably why we're still in the chitlin circuit.
I kept saying, like, what is that noise?
Volume adjustments up and down, random talks and laughing, that behavior,
That fact, they do be good, though.
You know what?
Yes. Anyway, do you have a keyword?
I almost have it.
Okay, so tonight's topic is it's complicated. The middle status. What does it really mean? All right. So we're going to dip into this tonight, and we're going to see if we can decode some of these issues that's going on here and see, what's what and how to try to identify it. But first things first, we're going to have Miss Natalie do her usual reading, and we're going to go from there.
All right, it's complicated. The middle status, what does it really mean? Typical scenarios. Number one, technically we're still together, but we're taking a break. Number two, we're just friends. Well, I don't know. We're cool, but just don't want to put a label on our situation. Number three, he's my ex, but if we ever need each other for anything, we're there. Number four, that's my kid's mom. You know how it is. We're going to always be family. Number five, hey, you want to hang out? Wait, aren't you married? Yeah, but we're separated. I'm still in the house because it's simpler that way for the kids, bills, etc. But we sleep in separate rooms. We both agreed to see each other people, so it's cool. Ain't no harm in hanging out. You just never know where this could lead. Sound familiar? Today, more often than not, those who are really trying to get into a serious relationship find themselves either introduced, or inducted into complicated situations. No matter how they got there, these situations only seem to work or are beneficial for one party in the union as opposed to both people in the relationship. It's complicated can often be a hall pass for those who still want to stay and play. What many define as complicated really is a statement that the person is truly not ready to move full throttle into his or her new love interest. So we have to ask ourselves, are we so desperate for love that we accept the exceptions to the rule when it comes to exclusivity? It's what's presented as a complicated situation, really that, or is it merely a situationship undefined? That's what we're talking about tonight.
All right. So before we take our dive in, Mr. Ford, since you're pretty hyper tonight, could you give us 30 seconds of intro prayer, please? Thank you.
30 seconds.
5 seconds.
I have an observation after that.
Okay.
Oh, so I'm praying now.
Yes.
Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for your protection. Father, we just ask that you would bless this moment, bless this discussion, help us to come away with enlightenment and illumination in terms of our real situation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. Now,
I'd like to share my observation.
about the
There's
show.
a person with a big yellow shirt on that is blocking the view of me that I'd like to sit back just a little bit.
It's hot tonight. It's hot up in here. It's hot up in this room tonight. I don't know
Say
what's
his name,
going on.
but he's right here.
It's hot up. Kill
Oh
Bill.
my
Kill
gosh,
Bill.
she's getting there with Dixon.
Guys, I think I'll comply. You know, I recognize when I see handicapped shoes. I don't want to be.
These are actually.
These are their handicapped shoes.
No.
Charles, there's somebody else that popped up on the screen, Charles. Look, it's somebody that popped up on the screen.
Oh, Mr. Bruce. So we have Mr. Bruce Oliver. How you doing, Mr. Bruce?
How you guys doing?
All right.
Please excuse my lateness.
All right. So, Mr. Bruce, just so you know, we have Mr. Adam Ford here to my left.
So, sir.
We have
brother.
Natalie Birdsong here.
Hi.
We have
Lovely.
Talia there, and Janice right there. And you know, Peacock is holding it down right there. We good.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce, we getting into tonight. We're talking about it's complicated. The middle status. What does it really mean?
The middle status. Okay.
The middle status. So I tell you what, Bruce, we're gonna let you kick it off. You kick it off with your perspective. We're gonna go around with what you think it's complicated means to you.
Well, let me ask you, what do you mean when you say the middle status?
So it's basically like if you look on Facebook, they have single, married, in a relationship, and then they have it's complicated. So it gives you the mindset of thinking it's gray area. Sort of. Yeah. Undefined.
That may be a little difficult for me to answer because typically I like to see things in black or white.
Okay.
I'm with you,
All
bro.
right.
That's one of the things I'm working on this year.
Okay.
It's very. I think it would be very challenging for relationships to be defined in the gray area.
Yeah.
If we are both approaching the relationship with some maturity,
Yeah.
then we're gonna have it distinctively defined. I think that the gray area or the middle area is a place that gives me some room to play a little bit. If I'm unsure of what I want to do with this woman as far as the future is concerned, where I want to take her, if I'm unsure about that, if I'm not concrete in my convictions on what kind of relationship I want to build with her, but she fine though, Charles. You know, she blessed. She got a blessed future behind her. You know.
You know what?
But I'm unsure. You know, I'm unstable. You know, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know what way I want to take her. So I'm unstable in my thoughts and the immaturity. To me, that's the middle. That's the gray area.
Okay. Good stuff. Mr. Ford. Well, I tell you what, let's go this way. Janice.
I think that we should not look at society's definition of what relationship statuses are. I mean, there's marriage, there's single, like you don't have any commitments. But why is any other thing different or it's unconventional? What makes it wrong? If people are agreeing to it and it works for them.
That's good.
Okay. All right.
I would say it's complicated is a period of transition. Either you're not ready to completely exit the relationship or you're not ready to fully commit and jump all the way into the relationship. But I think that complication signals a transition. Either we're growing together slowly or one of us is on our way out and the other person might not necessarily know. But I think that whole complicated status means there's some temporary, there's a temporary arrangement happening. Either it's temporary living situation or we're just kind of getting along to make it for somebody else's benefit, but it's.
I think that uncomplicated status is a stigmatism. As far as why do we have to conform into certain segments of relationship statuses? Why? As long as everybody's agreeing to it and is happy, why?
Why do we have to give it a name?
Why do we have to give it a freaking name?
Well, guess what? You
And
take.
it's your
Oh,
turn.
I'm sorry.
No,
That's
Right?
I'm not-
All right. So I feel like as a single person that's dating, if I meet a man and he says to me, well, right now it's kind of complicated, I think instantly, that is a situation that raises a red flag for me.
Okay.
It lets me know that there's some unfinished business, and I think how you get them is how you lose them. So I certainly don't want to enter a relationship with somebody who has some things going on, and I get the whole stigma thing, but it's not my preference to date somebody who hasn't closed the door already. I can't clearly see where I fit into the picture if you got somebody that's laying on your couch or y'all sleeping in separate rooms, but y'all not really together.
Yes, and you're right if he's honest with you.
Well, right. If he's honest and he's giving me an opportunity to make a decision for myself, that decision is no. That doesn't really make a lot of
But
sense.
what percentage of the time is he going to be honest with you?
Well, but if I find out, that's still a problem. So whether he tells me up front or I subsequently find out down the road, that's not a situation that I'm comfortable with
Okay,
because
that's
it's too many.
I
hands
agree
in the
with
pot.
you. I
Too
agree
many
with
hands in the pot.
Mm.
You go, Charles.
yeah, you go.
You go, Mr. Ford. But you so eagerly waiting.
I'm not eating. Go ahead. I'm listening, bro.
No, I mean, like I said in the pre-show earlier, my take on it's complicated initially because there's different angles to it. But my take is when you exchange commitment for an excuse. Basically, you don't want to. It's just like it's pushing the pause button. It's just hold on, like Bruce said. There's value here, but I'm not quite sure. So sit over here for 1 second if you don't mind. You understand what I'm saying? That's it's politely being on pause. It's complicated.
I agree with that.
But there's other ways. There's other ways we deal. Well, you know what? Let me stop. P. Coffee.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you think. What you think about complicated?
I don't fall into that category, sir. But I do think it's the acceptance of dysfunctionality. I think it's utter dysfunction, and it's like it's as though somebody is offering somebody some water from a cistern that they shouldn't be drinking from, and it's filthy, and they take it and drink it anyway. It's just total dysfunction, and it's like you said, it's basically the acceptance of what's not a reality. It's not going to be a reality. It's just the acceptance of. It's almost like somebody is just saying, "Okay, I'll take it just because it's offered. I don't want to be without something to identify with something or someone."
Right. Wow. So I've even heard situations where, let's just say, the individuals were married. And maybe they reached out, like I said in the narrative, they reached out and they were like, hey, what's going on? And so because there was a friendship, formally a coolness, even sometimes when people get married, even though you may have dated them, there's this, oh, okay, you're married, okay, and the person's off doing them and you're living your life, but there's no hatred or anything like that between you, just cool. So when the person reaches out to you, you may be a little like, okay, what's this person want? What's going on? And initially, the first thing is always, yeah, we can catch up, go get a bite or meet for this, that, and the other. And first thing you're going to say is, oh, so I do remember last time you were married. And so the person will be like, yeah, but, right now it's kind of like this. So it's a little complicated, but don't worry about that. I mean, she's doing her, I have permission to do me, I just want to see you. So it's a lot of that going on, and so they're presenting, look, I got some trouble over here, but it's under my control. I got it. Just let me still hang out with you. You know what I'm saying? So you got that angle of it too. All right, Mr. Ford. Here is the flip side of it's complicated.
Whatever, dude.
Go ahead.
All right. Look, I mean, it just sounds like to me that it's, and I could be oversimplifying what I'm about to say, so I'm just going to put that out there first.
Okay.
But it sounds like an alibi and a license to be able to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Because if somebody comes to me and, we're trying to enter into a relationship and she goes, but it's complicated, I'm going to be like, well, when you work that out, you give me a call. Because
Right.
I don't want to get involved in something that's going to further cause me difficulty in my life. At this point, at this stage of my life, I'm trying to simplify everything I possibly can. So if you're bringing more drama than what I already have to add to the drama that I don't need extra drama in my life. I really don't. So once you work out your complications, then let's make a phone call and let's see what's up with that.
I think that's a great point because I think it's based on what your expectation for what you're looking for while you're dating.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that's dating towards the purpose of marriage, it's complicated probably doesn't work because that's a whole extra step you have to overcome to even get to the just dating you and I process.
Right.
But if you're just, dating to have a little fun or doing whatever you're doing, it's complicated may not be as problematic.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Here's my other
100%.
point with this. My other point with this is like I was saying to Charles earlier today. The reality is that my life, as it is, me by myself, it's already complicated. We already live lives that we wish were a lot easier and simpler than what they already are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So why do I need to add another layer of tangled ropes and wires that I have to untangle now?
But here you're relating tangled ropes and wires to drama, and it doesn't always have to be that way.
Yeah.
It could be like, looky here, we are really cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Adam and you are really cool. We're good friends,
Right.
and we like going out and doing stuff together, but we're not committed.
Okay.
Can we do that?
That works if you're able to have a conversation with that level of transparency. And I just don't know that that's always applicable in today's
Not
day.
everybody's mature enough to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Because a lot of people are going to use this quote unquote complicated status again as a license to do whatever they feel they want to do.
No,
as
you
a
have
couple.
that right. You have that right as a
Yeah, people are going to do whatever they want to do
and
regardless.
you can't restrict them for that.
Regardless of what title or what label they give themselves. Yeah.
Right.
People are going to do whatever they want to do. I think to tell somebody you're in a complicated status is very upfront, and I think that's very mature. And I think that depending on what your counterpart is looking for in a relationship at that point, that might be a good fit. Because I might have something complicated going on over here, and you have something complicated going on. Well, that complicated kind of lines up.
And complicated doesn't mean drama.
And it depends on what you're looking for at that point in your life.
Well, I guess that term drama would be subjective to what you consider to be drama and what the other person doesn't consider to be drama.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like the way that you guys are describing it is that the third wheel is aware, but not necessarily the people encompassed in the complication. So when you guys are talking about the transparency, the person that's in the complication may not be aware of this other person outside of the equation.
So meaning we might be in a complicated relationship, but she
Right.
don't know it's complicated, but I know it's complicated.
No. Y'all together in your complication, but there's a third wheel, which is the other person that you're bringing into the equation, saying basically y'all two are complicated, and then you go to the third person, and that's the door you're opening for that, hangout partner, whatever else, however you want to call it. But does that third person know about the two of you, as far as everybody knowing about each other? Basically, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Is everybody know about everything? And then there's the other component about it being a rebound factor. Do you really want to be the rebound person after this concludes, whatever that is?
But what if you don't want it to conclude?
That's a good question.
Well, then but see, here's the thing. Everybody has to say to themselves, what life recipe am I brewing? If you never, ever, ever want to reach concrete, you just want to live in quicksand forever. That's pretty much, that's the equivalent. Because if you just say, hey, I want to be free, I want to do this, and that, I mean, realistically, nobody just wants to be free without somebody caring about them or really kind of taking them seriously in a valued position, although we all do different kind of things. But no one wants to really live that way. And if you think about it from this side, and then, Bruce, you can go, think about how we brew complicated situations like this. So think about how you may see think about how every day, how you guys may be going out, and here comes a guy, and how you doing? What's going on? The first thing you say, I'm fine. I got a friend. You already got somebody. What's the next thing? But I can be your friend too. So that's opening the door. But he's letting you know. But they're letting you know what that no, but they're letting you know. It happens all the time. They're letting you know. Look, good.
I think the verbiage is also, are you single? What from a female perspective? So are you single? Do you have a man? Well, yeah, I have a man, but we kind of going through a couple things. You got room for a friend. I think people very much communicate that way. Very much communicate that way.
It's a very common dynamic, Natalie. Very common.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Mr. Bruce?
To piggyback on what you just said, the question raises in my mind, Charles.
Yeah.
Are we concerned anymore about our souls being healthy? Are we concerned about having those multiple energies swimming around in us, bruh?
Yeah.
Well, you put it like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to, it's Monday night.
That's the
I know it ain't rated R like Tuesdays.
Right.
Are we concerned about what is really called, if I was to be serious about it, what is called the soul ties? So yeah, you can have a free choice. Hey, look, I'm choosing to do this, brother. I don't want a serious relationship. I just want booty calls every once in a while. I'm a hard-working woman. I'm in school. I work for the government or whatever. I got 19 degrees or whatever. I'm making 6 figures. I take care of myself. I just want a brother to come and do some maintenance once or twice a month.
Is that problematic?
It is problematic. See, because we are in control of that, here the angle which I'm saying it from. Because we are in control of those dynamics, we feel as though, hey, it's not a problem. I'm in control. This is my choice. But if you look at it from the angle of your soul, if you look at it from the angle of multiple energies, soul ties, when it comes to a point where you really want to settle down with that real serious brother that you really find interesting and intriguing, and you want to give yourself to him, you may find it a little complicated because you got 3 or 4 maintenance men swimming around in you. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
That's cross-pollination.
But he's giving it real.
Cross-pollination.
That's cross-pollination at its finest.
Yeah.
I know, I'm 50 now, but when I had the mentality of the, hey sister, you just want a friend, I had that mentality around 35 and 40, maybe even into my 40s. And I know, if I can sound arrogant for a little minute, Charles, I know by the time I finish dealing with you, girl, that next brother, he's going to have a problem.
Uh-oh.
Okay. All right.
Pause. It's either going to be positive or negative.
Right.
You're going to have a positive problem or negative problem, because you're not going to leave a relationship or a situationship with me. You're not going to leave it the same. And I don't mean in a positive way. Back then I hurt you. Wow. Back then I played with you. Back then I took your money. Wow. Back then I ran your credit out. Back then I crashed your car.
Wow.
And didn't have any money for the deductible. Y'all see where I'm going with it?
Yeah.
Who did you deal with? He just talking about women in general.
He's just talking about general. He's not talking about himself, I don't think.
Okay.
I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
Relax, my sister. It's all right.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
Objectively, so that we understand where you're coming from. All opinions are welcome.
So where I'm coming from, and even though it started out as us just being friends with benefits, I hurt you. I played with your life with no commitment. I didn't leave you the same. I left you scarred. I left you wounded. I left you unfulfilled. So here come the next man that's a serious brother that's sent to you to be a blessing to your life. He wants to wife you up. He want to date you and honor you and respect what you have to say and listen to you. And you can't give yourself to him because you got me and a few other brothers like me still swimming around in your soul. Pause.
Mr. Dixon, if it's okay, we got a few comments. Did you want to head to the
Sure,
comments?
sure.
All right. So Joy Daniel said, I will be gone if it's complicated because you will never get the whole truth. Erica Ransom said something very interesting. Just like you can't be half pregnant, you either are in or are not. It's complicated to me is selling for less than. Mark Raymond Johnson says women want to give it a name because a name lives next door to commitment. To me, relationships are about the two people, not social norms. I think Janet made a comment about that as well earlier about the social norms. Kimberly Adiva says nobody agrees to it's complicated. They tolerate it. Appreciate the son. Oh Lord. Kimberly Adiva also said a mature agreement between friends is called single. Deborah Bowie Brown says it always starts off with someone saying they can handle just hanging out with no commitment until emotions get involved. Emotions don't have a title. If you keep being intimate with someone as a woman, you are going to eventually catch feelings, and that is when it becomes complicated. And Mark Raymond Johnson says it ain't complicated until a person brings in a third person. Now that's complicated. And then Kimberly Diva says, let's keep it 100. Nobody wants complicated to never end. And if they want it to end, it's some type of ship, quote unquote.
Some kind of ship, or like a relationship, or
right,
whatever.
And then Carrie says soul ties are not an option at a certain level of maturity and spiritual accountability.
So I mean, hey, we get to a point where, you like you said, like the ladies to my right said, hey, it's sometimes in some people's cases they look at it as my grown woman preference, right, or grown man preference. If I want to do X, Y, Z, so be it. And from Bruce's side of it, he's just saying, sure, be grown, but you have to take the casualties with you. You know what I'm saying? There's casualties. He's talking about internal casualties and consequences that come with casually kind of making casual agreements.
But it doesn't have to be casualties if you are mature enough to make those type of agreements.
But here's the kicker. What he's talking about, he brought a negative, he's bringing the negative component up. But the other side of this, the point is, residual doesn't have to be either positive or negative. Somebody can be a part of you and distract you in a happy way in your marriage. You might just have happy thoughts of the old guy. It doesn't have to be bad. He treated you a certain way that your husband don't. Right. But he was really nice to me, but because he was such a good friend and went to Home Depot with me all the time, I loved him. So you think about all the things your husband don't do. So that's an example of a soul tie haunting you later in a positive way. You know what I'm saying?
I get that.
Yeah, it can. Doesn't always. And then again, when you guys were talking about the third person, the other party knowing and not knowing, most of the times where the fire is at home, there's a fire at home. And what happens is both people leave that house to go do their life, and they don't just get up and say, you know what, today, in most cases, I'm letting you know now when I get off break, I'm going over to John's house and I'll see you probably around 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I'll be with Mary. That don't really happen. You get up and you don't get up and speak. You don't speak to one another. You don't really, touch or all that. You just kind of go about your life, and then the sneakiness happens on your own. So the complicated person that's confused is the person outside. Because you're having to tell them, well, I understand. I mean, you understand. I mean, if you want to deal, I've heard this. If you want to deal, here are my terms. I can deal with you on these terms, but you can't come past this line here. I can come over there and play, but you can't come over here because this is, he doing this for me, paying for this, he don't blah, 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 but I just ain't loving him no more. But I want to do this.
But what if that other person is okay with that because they have a whole triage of
people on them? Am I not getting it?
No, listen. In most cases, you're not going to find too many women who just really want to avoid affectionate commitment. Too many women are going to want to avoid that.
I don't think that's what she proposed.
No, I'm making a point. I'm getting where she's going because Janice likes to live in the grave. She does. She likes to. She look at her. She's smiling. She likes to. I'm preaching now.
I need to sit down because you're scaring me.
I don't want her to call the girl of the too movement.
I know.
Anyway, but listen. Here's the thing. Sometimes what we fool ourselves into thinking is that we can get the head start on disappointment. And we try to do that by saying, guess what? I am going to fix my mind to accept people in a certain spaces and compartments in my life, and that's it. At the end of the night, I get to close them, I get to open them. And that's how I understand you.
No, Charles, I think you're compartmentalizing women and thinking that they don't think a certain way, and they don't have the ability to do so. And I disagree.
No,
with
it's
you.
men or women. It's not a sex thing. Anybody can do it. I've done it as a man.
I know you have. I heard your stories.
So what I'm saying is, it's men or women do it though. And so I'm just trying to say we live in denial, feeling like we can get the jump start on disappointment, and it does not exist. Anybody will disappoint you. Anybody.
I don't think it has to do with this one. I think it has to do with a sexual fulfillment and attention, and that's it.
Janice, if somebody was really that into sexual fulfillment, they'll be a prostitute. You're gonna be going to work. If you'll be a nympho all day.
All right. Okay. Flag on the plate, Charles. Flag on the plate, Charles. Flag on the plate, Charles.
Okay,
Flag on the plate, Charles.
The point I'm making is this. I'm fighting for normalcy, okay? I get it. We all have opinions to do what we want to do. But in a true normal track, most people want to have a normal commitment. They don't want to just live, quote unquote, in the grave, unless, because I've done that too, you just desire to. You desire to say, look, at this point in my life, I don't feel like all that. I've been in this situation, didn't pan out for me, so right now, this is all I'm making available to myself. Of myself. Is this. Nothing else. So in that lane, yeah, it happens.
I don't like that you're raising your voice.
That's it. You gotta be passionate. But go ahead. All right, Mr. Ford, you go ahead. I'll sit back now. Go ahead, Adam.
Right. Okay. Well.
Room or something and
We're not getting paid.
Yeah, let's see. Just check the door over there by the door. I don't know why.
Okay, so here we go. And this is what I kind of started saying earlier. When you deal with complications, and again, I probably am oversimplifying it.
Right.
Complications leave your life complicated. Just like we had that discussion in terms of trying to navigate that whole thing, because again, you got to take into consideration. Okay, it might be just you and the person that you're married to or that you're committed with, but then again, when you start, I guess, stepping out on that person and you're seeking somebody else for, I guess, whatever other fulfillment that you're looking for, yeah, that's going to make things a little. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. And yeah, look, understand. You do what you do. You're grown. You can do whatever you want to do. But what I'm saying is this. It's not going to be pretty in terms of what you do. And that's just the reality of life.
Only if the other person that's being defrauded is in the clear and know what's going on.
Yeah,
they have clarity.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Are you willing to go that extra step to say to this other person that you're dealing with, outside of your commitment that you already have, to say to them, hey, you know what? I got somebody already at home. This is what I'm doing. I'm just trying to do me. I'm just trying to get my fulfillment.
People do it.
I'm not saying they don't do it, but I'm telling you, even if you do that, somewhere along the line, somebody's going to develop some feelings for something.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to be easy just to pull that thing apart again. Mm-hmm. And again, I think as human beings, we are woefully underestimating our own emotions and how we really feel about things.
That's so
We're
true.
woefully underestimating those things. And we're saying those things, we're really saying those things don't matter when we pull that kind of stuff in. Because now we're saying, you know what, I can just do because I'm just a physical being. No, you're not. You're more than just a body. You're a mind, you're a soul, you're a heart.
That's right.
You are more than the sum of your parts. And I think when you do this kind of thing, you really do lower your value. Now look again. I'm not saying that you can't do. I'm not saying that you can't. This is my own personal thoughts. I'm not saying that you can't do. I'm saying you have to consider the cost of what you're doing.
That was hurtful.
No, I'm not trying to be hurtful. I'm not trying to be hurtful, and I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just saying consider what you're doing.
Right.
That's all I'm
I think
saying.
it's very sexist.
Do we ever tell men? Do we ever tell boys that they
No,
lower
listen,
their value?
this is for everybody.
You're not saying
Okay.
that women, when you do this, you are lowering your value.
I'm
I'm just
saying for
asking
men.
you. But do we ever give that message to men?
Here we go. And I'll use myself as a personal example. When I got out of my marriage, I dealt with some females. Okay.
Okay.
But I knew I had to be upfront and honest with them from the get-go.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to sit here and deceive them and deceive myself in the process because that was going to cost me something. I wasn't willing to pay that price. I'm not willing to pay that price. If I'm going to be with you, then I need to talk to you and tell you what's really going on with me. Because the last thing I want to do is hurt myself and in the process hurt you too. That's not cool.
So what you tell them?
Can we get back to my question? Do we ever give that message to young men that you are devaluing yourself in any way by
We have to
exploring your
start.
sex? But do we?
We need to.
Absolutely.
We don't.
I do.
Thank you.
As a
Thank
father
you.
to
We
my
don't.
child,
As a parent, I do. Most definitely. Most definitely.
I understand. Look, it was a period of discovery of realizing bad choices that my grandmother made that flowed into my parents, that flow into me. And so now I have to let my kids know, look, this is running through me. So 9 times out of 10, it's running through you too.
Right.
This is what we need to do to really confront this and preempt it before it starts again. Because if I don't talk about it, they're liable to make the same mistakes and same choices that I made.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Something that we inherit from years and generations ago. And so now we have to recondition ourselves to think differently in terms of the choices that we make today so that our tomorrow is a different day.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And value isn't tied to a gender. Value isn't tied to humanity as people. You know, how
Yes, absolutely.
how we view ourselves, how we want to be perceived by the people that are in our lives. That has to do with the person, not a gender. I think we put a lot of emphasis on it when it comes to women because there's this expectation of a woman being a lady and classy and things like that. So I don't think it's intended to be negative. I think that just in the mind of some men, it's an expectation to say that they don't want a woman to behave like they do necessarily. But nonetheless, the value still, again, should not be dictated by gender. It should be dictated by us just making sure we do right by ourselves as far as how we treat ourselves, how we treat our body, and how we carry ourselves as people, regardless of what our gender is.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't speaking, look, again, I just want to clarify this point one time. I haven't saying anything else the rest of the evening. I wasn't speaking specifically about how men deal with women. I'm speaking about how everybody deals with everybody. Right. Because this is a problem that everybody's encountered.
I appreciate that clarification because it did not.
You know what I'm saying? If it came out that way, I apologize. Because when I speak, I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. I'm not just talking about this is how men do and this is how women do. No, I'm talking about everybody. Because we all causing problems, for real. You know what I'm saying? So that's you know.
We still got a lot of
Bruce.
coming in. But you want Bruce to say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Bruce wanted to say that. If he's done, you can do it. It's up to you.
No, go ahead, Bruce. I already commented after you done.
Yeah, I wanted to ask how many of us would go into a computer store and buy a laptop, buy a tablet that we know has viruses on it? Have any of you had a virus on your phone or on your computer?
Yes.
And it has and you're trying to work. You have a relationship with your computer. You're trying to work, and you keep encountering pop-ups. The pop-ups are the result of the virus. Who would go and buy a computer that has viruses on it? So throughout my relationship with you, other men keep popping up. And I don't mean physically popping up, even though that can be the case. They pop up in your reactions and in your responses to me. In our conversation, the things that make you go from 0 to 60. If I say something that triggers something that somebody did in your past and pisses you off, here comes a pop-up. If we are in the bed, one way that it really manifests itself during the sex act is, boy,
Go ahead.
level. I'm trying to walk softly, bro. A level of violent aggression that a woman desires.
Oh, wow.
I know my brothers can back me up on this because we sense these things because we are the hunters. We know.
He's not lying. He's telling the truth.
We are with a woman. We know what another man has put into her.
Yeah, he's telling the truth.
Because all women start out innocent. But if she is with a man that almost, he's used to pulling her hair all the way out.
Oh, my.
He pulling her hair out the roots. Her scalp is bleeding. And
So let me ask a question.
she gets satisfied. That's not my style. But that's a pop-up.
Wow.
So it's dangerous for us to have these free volition type of, because it's my choice and we make the same decision type of relationships, because I'm telling you, it causes pop-ups down the road. It causes those.
Here's another objective from a female. So I think that it's quite possible for a female to, like, if we're speaking of sex specifically, I think it's quite possible for a female to like what she likes as well. And I'm not saying that in terms of aggression, maybe some females like it a little bit more aggressively. Maybe they didn't know they liked it that way and they experienced it and decided that they liked it that way. I don't necessarily think that it's always a negative thing if it comes into the next relationship. Just the same way as a man, you may have some things that you prefer that maybe this woman hasn't encountered, but that's your preference. So I think as it relates to sex, people are entitled to have their preference.
Oh, absolutely. It becomes a problem when my preference comes from my relationship with you.
Well, but
and if I'm in a relationship, and then if I begin a relationship with the next sister, and I devalue, there's that word again. I devalue, and this is all in my mind now. I'm not telling you this in our conversations, but I'm holding this in my mind and how I am judging you throughout the course of the relationship. I'm saying so-and-so ain't doing it like so-and-so used to do it. This is what I'm telling Charles, though, when we at Starbucks. Me and Charles playing tennis, we hanging out. This is what I'm telling him. Well, how you like so-and-so? Oh, man, she don't put it down like so-and-so used to do. She's a nice girl, though. You understand where I'm going with it?
Right.
Women are unaware because we don't have these type of conversations.
Women tell their friends that so-and-so ain't doing something like this.
Women don't talk like that.
Oh, please. Women tell their girlfriend that a guy is holding short. Come on. Are you for real? You
No, we tell them when they have shortcomings, but we don't tell them when
Good. Now, it depends on how cocky the woman. I've seen cocky women I've seen women tell another woman somebody holding it down. That's the truth.
Well, that's dangerous.
Yeah,
That is not smart. That's not smart.
I agree.
That's smart at all.
Oh.
But
How many good men?
But you know what? Good or bad, those type conversations need to be limited when you're talking to another female, because a woman might say, "Oh, he suck at this," and then that may be in her mind her opportunity to go ahead and handle what you just suggested. That, you know what I'm saying? So those type conversations don't need to be had. Period. Good or bad.
You're right. All right.
So you guys want to go to the comments?
Okay.
Comments.
All right. So Katonia says, good stuff. Soul ties, something to think about. But the person who is worrying about soul ties is the one who recognizes the creator of the soul. The one who doesn't will not understand the true effect of a soul tie. Yvonne Cooney Wright says, real talk, Bruce. Great explanation, especially with a woman and their feelings. Deborah Louis Brown says, when people say they don't mind being in something complicated or situationships, it's a defense mechanism because a bitter has happened or been hurt and afraid to be hurt again. Living is the gray is living in fear. Katonia said, good stuff. We live in denial thinking we can get the jump start on disappointment. Tennille says they usually don't have clarity, ego, complicated. Kimberly Adiva said, I repeat, where there is clarity or agreement, there is some type of shift. I agree with the brother, don't lower your value, Carrie says. Deborah says, why would anyone want to be with another person, man or woman? It's 5 billion people on the earth. Get your own man and find someone who thinks more of you than just a sex toy. You have to have higher standards and stop devaluing yourself, but yet call men dogs. Kimberly Adiva says, right, Adam, man or woman should not pay the price. Making complicated an issue or feminism is absurd. Tennille says, generational curses. It's a lot on here.
You guys.
Carrie said something interesting. She said, violent sex acts are a sign of viruses. For me, if he's not a gentleman in the bedroom, he's only an undercover gentleman in public. He's fronting only to get what he wants. How a man handles my body is a reflection of what I believe you feel about me. This doesn't apply to all, just me. That's what Carrie said.
Yeah. Yes. I think we should probably keep the mic away from Janice from it.
Well, I'm always going to hiccup, and I'm always going to take issue when there's ever any explicit or implicit mention of a woman's sexuality not having the same status or not having the same freedom as a man. And I understand this is something we've been taught years and years and hundreds of years of conditioning and generational curses. And we were taught, to be a good girl, you don't really explore your sexuality. You got to, keep your powder dry, keep your legs crossed, be chaste. But all of those lessons, I think just now, women are starting to reevaluate when we're teaching our daughters. And how that sets us up to be victims in relationships and place our value outside of ourselves and place our value into how many men want to sleep with us. Oh, well, then you must be worth a lot of money if you have a whole lot of men who want to sleep with you, and it's really it's a double-edged sword, and it's creating a whole generation of women, and we're all products of that. We are products of that generation of women that we're told, no, you got to be good. Don't do that. Don't do that. That makes you bad. And then we enter relationships and marriages where we think, well, we can't try it out ahead of time because then he's not going to value me. He's never going to marry me. He's never going to commit to me. And then you get into these dysfunctional relationships where you're not even compatible physically. And had we only had the wherewithal to trust ourselves and trust our instincts, a much better message to young women is don't let anybody pressure you. But you do it when you get ready to do it. And I'm going to arm you with how to be safe when you get ready to do it. But just to say, oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't have sex. That's ridiculous.
See, and as a mother of a 13-year-old daughter, the instructions I gave her, you don't have to get married. That is not in your plan if you don't want to. You don't have to be a mom if you don't want to. You do what you want to do. And that, don't follow the mainstream. Just because I did it doesn't mean you have to.
Wow.
And that's the example I'm trying to give her.
And she's still whole and complete and perfect without ever having a husband, a child, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a wife, a mistress, whatever.
Whatever she wants to do, she can do it.
Yes.
Same with my son.
And that's the new message.
Yes. And so.
Now.
Hey, Oprah. That was the old segment of the show. But anyway, so back to It's Complicated. That was pretty strong, and probably to some of your ears it was complicated. But it's their truth. So we're gonna move to the next move. So, all right. At the end of the day, this is a good show tonight because it's showing us that we are truly all unique and different. Doesn't mean anything is wrong with anybody. It's just everybody owns their own choice, their own beliefs, their own standards, whatever. But at the end of the day, I guess you have to leave this to those who want to drink it, right? If you want to drink, what I'm going to say. So at the end of the day, if you don't want to find yourself, this is to those people. You don't want to find yourself in complicated scenarios. Be honest with yourself, and when you first feel yourself becoming confused, it's because someone is likely contemplating your fate. You know what I'm saying? When you start to feel confused and like, what is going on? You don't feel like that connection is there, or that person is really welcoming you in a sure way. 9 times out of 10, you're being contemplated on what to do with you. They're not confused. They know clearly. Everybody knows what they want in their life. No one is confused. We know what we want. We may just be a little selfish and say, well, I don't want to let go of Adam. Yeah, he's so nice, but you know what you want, right? But you're just a little selfish, so you want to keep Adam a little bit because he has a place, or this person has a place. So we do these things. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to be in a complicated situation, just don't. Don't. It's like to me, when I think of complications and complicated relationships, I told Adam in the pre-show, that's what tying the knots for. Marriage is for complicated stuff because you're learning one another. You're in a knot. You're learning how to untie, tie, get strong, all these things. So things are confusing. You're trying to blend families. You're trying to blend standards. Janice is telling her daughter, you can jump off the building. I'm telling her, don't get back up there. So, you got to anyway, you have all this. But this is what happens when people get married. You got to blend your life together. You blend your beliefs, you blend everything. You attempt to anyway. Doesn't always work, but people attempt to do it. So I don't know. I feel like you're up to something over there. I can feel tired. Go ahead, Ty.
I already made my point. I already stood on my soapbox and gave my
speech.
speech.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you. We gotta change the narrative because we just gotta change it.
Yeah.
For little boys and for little girls.
Absolutely.
Yes. You're right.
And I guess my ending comment is I really just don't give into just the categories of relationship statuses. Things can be okay and not conform.
Okay.
And people can be happy and live fulfilled and not conform. Just don't judge.
I have one quick question for you. Do you feel this way because you tried something and it didn't work, or organically is this from your heart? And I'm only asking you this because, like you said, you have a daughter, you've been married before, so at once upon a time you believed this ideal. So what happened to make you say,
wait a minute,
I'm not being funny. I'm not being funny. I'm just trying to say, no, I'm saying this because it sounds like you're cool with this. Look, here's the thing. This is the conversation room, right? Everybody can say what they want. Have thick skin. Talk about me. Whatever. We just talking. There's nobody being sensitive.
Talk about you.
No, that's right. I don't care. Look, we just talking. It's just that we
But
just
Kill Bill.
I'm not trying to hurt. Janice knows I'm not trying to hurt her feelings. I have Janice on the show all the time. I'm just saying. I'm legitimately curious. I'm curious because
what's the question?
I'm just saying you have. It sounds as if your opinions are the extreme opposite of what you started on. So I'm just wanting to know, and I'm not trying to dig in your business. I'm just asking you, what happened in your mind and your logic to say, you know what, going forward, after that life, I am living it this way going forward, and I'm going to preach it to my kid and so forth.
No, I believe in institutions.
Okay.
I think that I was very happy being married.
Right.
When I was. But I believe also I've learned with maturity that it's okay. And I've learned to be happy otherwise.
Oh, okay, that's fair. All right.
It made me happier.
All right, Mr. Ford.
You know what? I'm gonna help my sister out because when you go through marriage and then the marriage doesn't work according to your expectations, it changes you. It changes you.
No.
It changes the way that you look at life.
Mm.
And now you've come away with that experience, and it informs now a new you.
Mm.
You're now informed based on your past experience.
Wow.
And so now you're making different choices.
Mm.
You're seeing life through a different lens now. And now your choices are based upon the lens that you look through. I think all of us do that.
Yeah.
Whatever experience that we go through, whatever situation that we have gone through in our life, the hope is that you learn from that.
Yeah.
Because my hope is I don't want to do the same thing I did before.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I got to do something different now. You know what I'm saying? And so I understand where you are. I get it. You know, you just got to do things differently now. You know?
You just have to understand where we are and they are. They're over there. No, I'm just playing.
I've been wanting to fight you.
Mr. Bruce, what you got to say, sir?
I would say that many times, you know, like my brother just said, we go through things, man, and they don't quite turn out the way we expected it. We can run the risk of rationalizing. Rationalizing simply means telling ourselves rational lies. And then we develop a philosophy around those rational lies. And then after we develop a philosophy around those rational lies, we develop a way of life. But at the end of it all, at the core, that way of life is still unhealthy. In the onset, it's not going to seem unhealthy. During it, it may seem fun. It may seem like we are in control. It may seem like, hey, we are making our own decisions. So I got this. But based on my experience, I'll just speak for myself. Based on my experience, the time will come when the wholesome things that you wanted in your life, you're going to want again. You're going to want those things again. If that makes any sense, what I'm saying. And the challenges are going to be there that come from the rational lies that we created from our disappointment in the first place. Pause.
All right. Now, you got something to say? Any words to say?
No. Well, what I'll say is I don't have any at this particular moment, but should something pop up in a minute or two, I'll interject. That's okay.
Well, we're winding down. That's why I asked. P. Coffee?
I'm going to concede at this time.
Well, but because you know why? I think that this subject is so intensely personal, and it really boils down to the expectation you have for the course of the relationship and what you're willing to accept or not accept, and that answer is going to be different for everyone.
Yeah,
so it's really objective.
Yeah, that's what makes it
The
good.
only thing is that the hope would be that we're dealing with people who are honest about their situation. That's what the hope would be. Because a lot of this sounds like people are not privy to the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They're privy to a certain component of it, but not all of the facts to be able to make a well-informed decision. Because honestly, who really wants to be in these type dynamics where it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different folks all, you know, that's just too much. That's too much maintenance to try to maintain all that stuff. So, but again, hopefully we're dealing with people who are being truthful with us about who they are, what they're doing, how they're living their lives, and how we fall into that equation, if you will.
For those of you that are either tuning in or that are on the panel via satellite or here that have been like married for a while or in committed relationships for a while, I think it's really important to know that the dating environment that you may have left when you entered your relationship is not what we're dealing with now. So in theory, people should be transparent, people should be honest, they should be open, but that is not the dynamics of what us single folks are dealing with right now. You would hope so, but I think more of us than not are dealing with half stories or just divulging the facts that they want you to know, not necessarily everything should know.
Right.
So unfortunately, the dating pool is so convoluted and horrible out here that we're just doing what we can to make it. Really, we're just all trying to survive.
And that's
That sounds
unfortunate.
really negative and bad, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so unfortunate. That's an unfortunate truth. That's sad, but it is the reality of what's going on in the time we live in.
Wait a minute, breaking news. 10 people just logged off after that. But anyway, so, yes.
Wow.
I really enjoyed all of you guys tonight. I appreciate the intensity. Mr. Bruce, I appreciate you as always. Peacock, we thank you for quarterbacking. Mr. Ford, we'll have you offering at the door. Natalie, thank you. Thank you. Talia.
Yes.
Wow, all right. He's a good child servant.
Pardon my reach.
Yeah. And Janice, we see now we need to get you in the UFC. But anyway, so fighter. I can sense it. But yes, we thank you guys, and we will see you all next week. You got some? Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
You guys tell YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope bye.
Bye, YouTube. Bye, Twitter. Bye, Periscope.
Bye.
They're like 30,000 bye. Oh, computer. All right, hold on. Wait, no, we're not off here.
I think you got off already.
No, not on here. Hold on. I can tell it's not on. Hold on 1 second.
You still on Facebook.
Okay.
We're already on.
Hold on.